Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, we're going to talk about training to failure, or how the industry tends to really dumb down training to failure and make you think if every set isn't pushed to failure, you are using junk volume. Before I get into this topic, if you guys would like a custom workout, check out the link down below. If you would like to work with me, coaching is what I do for a living. Check out the link down below. All right, so I have my notes here because I don't want to mess anything up and I want to remember everything. So I'm going to be going through my notes, reading some things, and you guys, I would love to hear what you have to think regarding training or failure. Drop a comment down below. Let's get into things because I have 5 major points. So if you go on social media or influencer fitness or YouTube fitness, you often get the impression that if every set isn't taken to failure, somehow you're a big knucklehead, right? You're not training hard enough. Anything that's not training to failure is junk volume. And this is such an idiotic way to look at things. It really is. And I'm going to explain why, because lifting is a long-term process. I've been in this industry for a very long time, and I've met a lot of very successful lifters. And, they've been lifting for a very long period of time. It's impossible over a long period of time to maximize each and every set. That's just a nonsensical, that's just a silly way to, it's a fairy tale. It just doesn't happen in the real world. In the real world, it's going to take you a long time to build muscle mass, and there's going to be a lot of seasons. And on any individual, workout, or maybe just a period of time, you're not going to be able to maximize every set. You're not going to be able to take every set to the limit. It's certainly not every single day. So while this sounds really good in influencer world, when we're trying to make everything black and white, that's not the reality of training. So here's point number 1. Long-term muscle and strength is what matters the most. The big picture is what drives results, not just mindless proclamations about training to failure. So I wrote down, building strength and muscle is a long-term process. You have to get a lot stronger than you are now. We're not talking about powerlifting training. We're talking about getting a lot stronger using progressive overload in the lane of hard training. And that doesn't happen by redlining every set. The key focus has to be on beating the logbook safely and wisely during each workout. Some sets I will beat the logbook without training to failure. That's perfectly fine. I might look back, beat the logbook, and then just stop the set. Okay, I got a +1, +2. I got some progress for the week. I'm just not feeling it. I don't have the extra energy, or I just don't feel like taking this set to failure. That's okay. As long as we're looking at the logbook and trying to beat the logbook, we have a good foundation. I also went on to say progress isn't about pain, it's about smart cumulative stress over the years. So the key thing you want to think about is that over a 10-year period of time, or a 5-year period of time, or a 7-year period of time, you always want to have an eye on the logbook. And you want to try to beat the logbook when you can. That's your primary goal when you go into the gym. But you're not going to have that happen during every workout. We have to be safe. We have to have our training sustainable. And sometimes you just go in, you beat the logbook, you get out of the gym, you live to fight another day. This isn't some formula. We have to have 100% sets trained to failure all the time. That is just nonsense thinking. Now, point number 2 here, I put down the 100 lifter thought experiment. I want you guys to think about this. Let's say we take 100 lifters and give them 20 well-chosen lifts. So, okay, let's say we did a scientific experiment. I'm going to take 100 lifters and I'm going to give them 20 of the same lifts. So they're all going to be doing 20 of the same lifts. They have 10 years to get a lot stronger. All of these lifters over the course of 10 years, they're all going to go along their own little path. They're going to evolve their training. They're going to use a split they like. They're going to use a progression approach they like. We're going to assume there's different seasons in their life. Somebody's sick now. Somebody has a lot of stress. Somebody can't sleep. But at the end of 10 years, they all reach elite gym strength levels in the lane of hard training. We're not just trying to get stronger, we're trying to train hard, beat the logbook, and progress in the lane of hard training. So we have our 100 lifters, and they're all doing their own thing, doing their own splits, evolving their training on what is working for them. But after 10 years, they're all gym elite on these 20 exercises. If you look at all of these 100 lifters and start to analyze what actual percentage of sets were trained to failure in the context of what is pushed on social media, you would have a wide variety of percentages. You would have things all across the board. You would have some guys that like to do 2 sets per exercise and maybe have a slightly higher failure percentage rate, and you would have some guys that prefer a little bit of volume but are progressing in that lane. The point I want you to think about is that over the course of 10 years, not a real high percentage of sets are actually pushed to the absolute limit. You're going to have a lot of sets that are pushed to the limit, and I don't like to use the word failure, but it would probably be surprising to you how many sets are actually pushed to the limit as far as a percentage-wise. If you listen to the internet or the voices on the internet, you think every set all the time has to be pushed to failure. But if you looked at this sort of an experiment with 100 lifters that all got really big and all had really strong gym elite strength standards, it wouldn't be anywhere near 100%. That's the reality. It wouldn't be anywhere near 100%. We're not advocating training like wimps. We're not advocating training weak, but that's the reality of training. You get in, you do what you can, you try to push as hard as you can, but you try to be sustainable. All of these 100 lifters would have different methods, different splits, different progression approaches, and different rates that they push a specific lift on. But at the end of the day, none of them would be pushing 100% of their sets to failure. And that doesn't mean they're using junk volume. All right, now point number 3, and this is a big one and one I've talked about before. Training to failure is contextual. What does this mean? Training to failure means different things for different lifts. If you're doing a press, when you're doing presses like an overhead press or a bench press or a machine chest press, when your speed slows down on a rep, that's basically when you hit failure. I mean, you can try the next rep, but when you notice speed slowing, that's form failure for that lift. You can try the next rep, but 99% of the time, you're not going to get it. The only thing you're generally going to get out of that extra rep attempt is a lot of aggravation. Now, on a press, there's nothing wrong with pushing it to the limit or pushing it to the point where you can't move the weight. Generally, this isn't going to beat us up, but the thing to think about on a press is when that speed slows, that's basically form failure. The same thing on a row or a pull, a seated cable row or a dumbbell row. When you notice speed starting to slow, that's basically form failure. If you try the next rep, you might be able to English it up or cheat it up, but you're at failure. So these sorts of lifts, pushes and pulls, not really taxing to the body when it comes to pushing them to the limit. On posterior lifts, if you push them to this sort of limit where speed is slowing, you're going to jack up your body. The risk reward simply isn't there. On posterior lifts, I have always tried to progress in that lane where I have left about 2, maybe 3 reps in the tank on any given set. Now, according to the internet jokers, if you leave 2 to 3 reps in the tank on a lift, you're not training to failure and you just have junk volume and you don't have productive training. In the real world, on a posterior lift, when you do this, you are training smart and you are training sustainably. You're not jacking up your body or using some arbitrary robotic creation of somebody that doesn't actually train people in the real world or have experience in the real world with these lifts. Believe it or not, you can look at the logbook on squats and you can leave a couple reps in the tank, but you can still progress. When I am doing squats, I might know that I did 455 by 6 last time. And I might go into the gym knowing, hey, I did 455 by 6 last time, and I might have an eye on rep number 7, but I am only going to do that when it comes to me. I teach that posterior lifts are like dancing with a bear. You let the bear lead, but when the bear gives you a step, you take that step forward. On the posterior lifts, when you can get a safe rep addition, you take it, but you don't have to worry how close proximity wise you are to failure. You take that step when you can, when it is naturally developing or naturally evolving and coming to you. Now, the point of all this rambling is simple, that every lift is different. The demands of every exercise is different. So making these blanket statements that you have to push every set to failure lacks the fundamental understanding that the demands of every exercise are different. Every exercise is going to treat the body differently. You can look at the logbook and you can try to beat the logbook, but you don't have to worry about how close proximity-wise you are to failure. You have to be smart. You have to be safe. You have to use common sense. Perhaps on curls, when you go to failure, it beats up your biceps tendons. But if you're just smart and safe and you look at the logbook and you try to beat the logbook when you can, you try to progress when you can, you don't have this defeatist negative attitude that you're not actually trying to push hard. You're training hard in the gym, but you're also training smart. You're adding reps when you can safely. That's okay. It doesn't have to be tied to failure, and I want you guys to know that's okay. All these knuckleberries, all these chuckleheads on social media might tell you, hey, what he's advocating isn't training to failure, and it's unproductive, and it's junk volume. You can see the disconnect between what they are teaching and what it takes to get it done over 10 years. All right, point number 4, and it's tied to the last point. You can force training to failure, but you can also force the increase in injury risk. I want you to understand something. Over a 10-year period of time, if you go into the gym and you think you can force progression, okay, you think you can, by training to failure on every lift, every set of every lift, I can somehow force progression to move faster. This is a huge lie. If you go into the gym and you are focused on training hard and training smart and training safe and adding a rep when you can, this is going to be normal progression. You can go into the gym and say, I am going to just attack progression and expedite it by 50% by pushing every set to failure. This really is a lie. It is a long process. Every lift is going to progress at its own rate, and you can't force progression by pushing the needle to the absolute edge on every set. This is a fairy tale. This falls apart in the real world. The only thing you're going to do is if you try to push every set to the absolute brink of destruction, all you're going to do is increase your risk of injury. Again, we are not advocating training weak, training like a wet noodle. We're advocating training smart and stepping beyond all the nonsense on social media, the black and white statements that everything must be this, that, or the other thing for training to be productive. In the real world, after a year, once you're beyond the beginner gains, progression moves very slowly. Okay, let's say you start at a 95-pound bench and you're weak as heck, and you get it up to 185 after a year. You're doing really, really well. Now you have 9 years left to build quality muscle mass, and maybe you're moving your bench from 185 to 315 in 5 years and 6 years, whatever, it doesn't matter. The reality of training at this point is that you're probably going to add a rep to your bench every 8 weeks if you're lucky. This doesn't sound like good progress, but it will add 40 pounds to your bench a year and take you from 185 to 225 to 265 to 305, 315 in about 4, maybe 3.5 years. Long-term intermediate progress is all about being patient and keeping yourself healthy and keeping yourself, motivated and keeping yourself in the gym. Given the reality that on a big lift like the bench press, you might add a rep only every 8 weeks, you can't force this by pushing everything to failure. It's a natural process. When you're training hard, it's going to naturally come to you. It's like giving birth to a new rep, right? You can't force it. If you're training hard, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. But if you think you can push everything to the edge all the time and expedite this, the only thing you're going to do is expedite injuries. Repeat, expedite injuries. All right, so the final point here, what I have here, the practical takeaway, and I wrote down all this overthinking, 1 RIR versus 0 RIR, or 2 to 3 sets, and how many sets of every exercise you push to failure. It's noise. It's absolute nonsense. It averages out over time. It's not a formula. It's not 100%. If you focus on hard training, if you focus on safe training, you will, and you focus on getting a lot stronger than you are now, and understand it's a long-term process. It doesn't matter what percentage of sets you're training to failure. This isn't a formula or anything you ever need to think about. All you need to think about is sustainability, getting in the gym and trying to push everything you can out of that set. Get everything you can out of that set without punishing the body unnecessarily. Yes, you're going to work hard. Yes, you're going to pick up strains and pains. We go into the gym with the attitude, number one, we're looking at the logbook. Number two, we're going to try to beat the logbook within reason. Number three, we're going to understand it's a long-term process. So 90% of our workouts, once we reach intermediate stage, we're probably not going to beat the logbook. Number four, if we don't beat the logbook, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with our training. And number five, if every set isn't pushed to the limit, that doesn't mean it's not junk volume. I want to end with a thought regarding hypertrophy training, and I want you guys to remember this because this is arguably the most important thought you could ever have when it comes to simplifying hypertrophy training. I want you to think about every rep as a brick, and we're going to place that brick on our shoulders, metaphorically, theoretically, in some vaporous context, right? Every repetition is a brick. It's a brick, and we're going to place it on our shoulders. We're going to consider every repetition and every step forward in weight as external pressure that continues to push down on you like an external force, okay? So you start with an external force of 95 pounds on the bench press for 5 reps, pressing down on you. And then you move to 6 reps. So it's a little bit more pressure pressing down on you. And then you move to 7 reps. And it's a little bit more external force pressing in on you, pushing in on you, pressing down on you. Here's what the body does to that external force. It responds by pushing back. It responds by growing. This is the hypertrophy process. It's very simple. It's not a formula. It doesn't really care how many sets are pushed to failure, because in the long run, if you are pushing for additional reps, you're placing more stress on the body, you're progressing, the body is going to push back by growing. When you are naturally progressing over time or trying to beat the logbook, you're going to have an organic number of sets that push to failure to whatever degree. You can't progress without pushing sets harder to the limit. But we don't have to worry about what percentage of these sets are pushed hard, because that's all going to take care of itself. You can't go from a 95-pound bench to a 315-pound bench without pushing a lot of sets to the limit. But if we start to worry about the mechanisms, what percentage of sets, we're really getting lost in the weeds. No one goes from a 95-pound bench to a 315-pound bench without pushing a lot of sets to the limit. But we don't have to worry about the percentage. Worry about adding those bricks. Once you get up to 135 pounds on the bench press for 5 reps, you have a lot more weight on your shoulders, a lot more external force pushing down on you, and the body is responding by pushing back and growing. Now, if you have this 100 lifter experiment we talked about with everybody having 20 lifts, if you get stronger and stronger and push on all these lifts, it's more and more external force pressing down, pushing back, placing pressure on the body, and the body is going to respond by growing stronger, pushing back against this external force. So consider all of these lifts to be external forces: your overhead presses, your barbell rows, your bench press, your pull-ups, your squats, your deadlifts, whatever you're doing. You're placing external force on the body. The body is going to respond by pushing back and growing. So progressive overload is progressive overload. It's going to continually, progressively place more external pressure or stress on the body. The body is going to respond by pushing back and getting stronger. We have to stay in the lane of hard training. We need to stay smart, stay safe, try to add reps. We're not worried about what percentage of sets are taken to failure. This is nonsense fairy tale thinking. You get into the gym, you try to beat the logbook, you try to increase the external stress on the body will respond by pushing back and building muscle. And you do this over a very long period of time. Before I go, I want you guys to check out this video on training to failure for more information. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.